Appreciate it. Well, as we look at what's going on in stocks here today, we've been watching, of course, the earnings outlook. That's something we've been talking to a lot of strategists about. We talked to Amanda Agati about it earlier today. She was pretty positive on earnings growth that we have seen. That was the topic of today's morning brief. Not everybody's so positive, though. Myles Udland is here with us. What a pleasure.
There we are. Look at this.
Look at this.
Oh, we got a hanging. Oh, okay. What's up?
So, Myles Udland, you were looking at some of the talk about earnings growth in the morning brief. And what's the sort of, I don't know, conclusion, if you can make one, all of the divergent notes?
Well, so what a surprise. Mike Wilson at Morgan Stanley is a little bit bearish on the market here. But I think his argument is essentially founded in two real shifts that are happening in the market right now. The first is that the market has moved on the move in rates. And I think if you look at things like Peloton, we were just talking about, go through all the kind of, we won't use the word on air, but all the companies that have messy balance sheets, let's say, they have all been sold pretty much indiscriminately, right? Those stocks are down 60, 70, 80%. We all know the names. So that's the rates trade. Now we're going to head into the earnings trade, or at least this is what Wilson is saying, and that kind of comes to the Targets, the Walmarts. This is the big companies in the market that, in Wilson's view, are going to come out in July and say that their earnings over the second half of the year are going to be down. And a notable part of this story is in the last 2 months, aggregate S&P earnings have actually gotten revised higher, which, Saz, I know is probably a little bit difficult to square in this environment. And I think you hear what Target comes out with this morning, and all of a sudden companies are either ready to admit that they have a better view, a more negative view on their business, or are just realizing that their business is not going to be as good as they hoped.
Myles, let's try to write the morning brief tomorrow.
Brian Chung has it, so let's frame it this way.
Maybe like Thursday or Friday. Targets, warning, signals, recession risk, none of this is priced into stocks. Why isn't this a major sell signal?
Well, you mean Target's warning specifically? Well, I think the way that I looked at Target's warning, and I'd be interested on I know you guys have rehashed this, so I don't want to go over it too much, but Target is kind of doubling down on, this is a macro problem. This is not a Target problem. But it might, it might be a Target problem. Are we sure that Target here hasn't really miscalculated their own kind of product mix, their own, inventories, whatever it is, and maybe they're now, they cut their margin outlook for the current quarter
by
75% in the last 3 weeks, though? Yeah. But the thing is, to me, everybody has a problem, but this is kind of this might be Target's specifically a problem, which is maybe why investors overall are not ready to slash their S&P earnings outlook because, just because Target says it's bad.
Well, one thing that we were discussing earlier was what is to happen, what is the economic implication once you see some of the services or experiences related companies also saying, hey, we can't pass on every single cost to customers right now because they're starting to push back in some sense or the other.
Well, so the problem is airlines come out and they're raising their forecasts every day. I think every major U.S. airline has come out in the last couple of weeks and said that we are at record volumes or 2019 volumes or within shouting distance, raising the revenue. If anybody has booked a flight, they know how expensive it is. I saw there was a viral dumb tweet going around yesterday of someone being like, I'm now sitting on a flight wondering what does everybody do that they can afford to be on this flight. So I'm not sure it's quite at that level, but it's directionally at that level. And it kind of begs a question how much, what can those companies say to counterbalance Target? And right now, they're saying more than enough.
I actually just put off a trip because the flight was too expensive.
Okay, there you go.
Too long. I waited too long to book.
Yeah.
The flight is too expensive. I am not taking the trip at the time I was planning to take
Sell signal.
Well, okay, so we know that ANIC data. We know ANIC data is the most important data. But can we get into this a little bit? Where were you going? How long? How much lead time did you give yourself?
I was going to Vancouver. And
so cross-border travel.
But I was also looking at Seattle as a possibility, and both of them were almost equally expensive. And I'm also picky because I will only do nonstop.
So there you go.
It's a little bit of a you problem. It's a little bit of a me problem.
How many tickets? Was it for all four of you or just you and Howie?
All four.
Okay, everybody's gone.
So, also as we talk about, though, is it a Target problem? Is it a me problem or is it an airline problem?
Dave and Buster's.
Great. Is it a Target problem or is it an everybody problem? It's a Target problem and a Walmart problem because they sell everything. And there aren't that many retailers anymore that sell everything, right?
I know, they do sell everything. But then the other way that you can cut the Target news and now the stock's only down 4% is because they're calling out strength in beauty. They're calling out that their food business is actually okay. Their problem, Target's problem, is with the home business, the furnishings business. Now, we also got into this conversation back when Walmart and Target was 3 weeks ago. They both cut earnings, or both cut their forecasts, inventory, yada, yada. Next day, dollar stores come out and say everything's great. And that shows a shift, right? The dollar stores called out food. So you have consumers leveling down for certain essentials, but just getting rid of, like, not buying other things wholesale, or like, full stop, getting rid of those things. So I think, again, it's like this complicated picture. And back to the airline conversation, investors aren't ready yet to say Target has a view of the whole world. Investors are kind of like, Target has a view of Target, and maybe that's not good enough.
Yeah.
So.
Vancouver to Dave & Buster's, though, would be the trade down to trade down.
Yeah.
I mean, we should go tonight to celebrate.
That's a $300 night.
Dave, what are we celebrating?
They got earnings tonight.
We're celebrating Myles.
Oh, no, they already reported this morning.
Oh,
they did better. Yes, it was the timing
Work
guy.
that ticker into the post.
Indeed. Our own Myles Udland joining us here on set. Thanks so much, Myles.